Hey, 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 good evening, Facebook family. Welcome to another episode of Post Daily Dose with me, your trusted parenting advisor, faithful guide and servant on the healing journey. What's my name? Big Papa Bryan+Post, baby. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk about how to see problem behaviors. And that's going to start by understanding the stress model. I think I'm going to spend the next 2-3 episodes helping you really understand the stress model. And what makes me think about this is I've got an upcoming virtual training for a group in Canada. And in Canada, one of the pervasive disorders, hello, Mom, one of the pervasive disorders, diagnostic disorders for the last, I actually worked in Vancouver, Canada, probably 14 years ago, 15 years ago. Probably 15, 16 years ago. Golly, seems so long ago. One of the pervasive disorders at the time was, in fact, it was 97, between 97 and 99. Oh my goodness. That was a long time ago. Maybe that's why you guys see all this gray hair. Was fetal alcohol syndrome or exposure, and FASE. And I always thought about that because, see, I hadn't even come up with the stress model until then. It was during my time there that I actually came up with the stress model and coined it based on this little awareness I had one morning. And I think I've mentioned it to you guys before. I'd been asking the question, what leads to attachment? What leads to attachment? For like 3 years. No one really gave me an answer. And then I had this breakthrough moment early in the morning, 7 in the morning. It just hit me. God spoke to me and said, stress. As long as you are stressed, you cannot develop attachment. And I was like, that was it. I knew that was it. It was a life-changing light bulb moment. So I went on to develop the stress model around that. And I heard Deepak Chopra talking about the 2 primary emotions. And this was probably a couple years after that when I heard Deepak Chopra talking about the 2 primary emotions just being love and fear. Another light bulb moment. It's just like this breakthrough. And then I put the stress model together from that. And the stress model is very simple. And I encourage you guys to write this down. I'm going to slow down really quick. I'm going to pause so you can get yourself an ink pen or a piece of paper. And if you should have probably seen this by now, but a lot of times I don't spend enough time going in depth. The stress model says all behavior, and I do a little circle, all behavior arises, so there's 3 circles. 1, 2, 3. All behavior arises from a state of stress. So I'll drop down to the bottom circle. So behavior on the top, stress on the bottom. In between the behavior and the stress is the presence of a primary emotion. That's the middle primary emotion. There are only 2 primary emotions, love and fear. Those are only 2 primary emotions. The definition of an emotion is energy in motion. And I'm going to go into this in just a minute. It's through the expression, the processing, and the understanding, which is how we integrate trauma to keep it from being a short-term traumatic event versus a lifelong traumatic event. It's through the expression, the processing, and the understanding of the fear that we can calm the stress and diminish the behavior. All behavior arises from a state of stress. In between the behavior and the stress is the presence of a primary emotion. It is through the expression, the processing, and the understanding of the fear that we calm the stress and diminish the behavior. And I'm going to say that one more time. Ultimately, I would really like for you guys to remember this. I would like for you to memorize it. And the therapists I've trained over the years, that's one of the things I always push for them to do is memorize the stress model so you can start thinking about it and you can start seeing it. Hey, Lisa, all behavior arises from a state of stress. So all behavior is manifested from a state of stress. You don't have behaviors without stress. And that's from the very beginning. And there are 3 kinds of stress. There's eustress, which is good stress, the stress that we need to overcome illness. There is the stress of life, just the everyday stress of getting in a car and driving, getting in the shower and getting foreign chemicals in your body, laughing. And then there is distress, the experience of stress outside of your window of tolerance, which is correlated to all the health challenges that we face, the emotional challenges that we face. So all behavior, and when I say all, I mean every single behavior. The stress model is profound in the fact that it is so simple, yet I apply it to the most complex scenarios with the most difficult children and the most stressed out families. Deanne says, I'm curious how your model interfaces with FASD. FASD kids, since they have brain damage. Good question, Deanne. Here's the thing. When you've experienced trauma, you have brain damage too. The brain research shows that when the brain is exposed to prolonged, overwhelming, unexpected states of stress, which is trauma, dendrites in the hippocampus shrink and shrivel, equivalent to FAS in that the areas of the brain that are getting damaged are the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and the ability to communicate toward the orbitofrontal cortex, and the amygdala is becoming more sensitive. So that's why, so it's awesome that you even bring that up, Deanne. I think you might have missed the first part of what I was saying, is that my whole model was developed around FAS kids. And so I was actually running a group home, a treatment group home, and there were 5 FAS kids, when I first developed this model. So it's what's important that we understand is that the exposure creates a sensitive brain. The exposure creates a child who is delayed in their regulatory ability. The exposure creates a child who experiences heightened levels of fear and stress. And so when you understand that fundamentally, and then other than perhaps the learning delays and the cognitive delays and challenges that come along with FAS, there's really no difference in FAS between an FAS child, a reactive attachment disorder child, a post-traumatic stress disorder child, oppositional defiant disorder child, an ADHD child. They're all the same. They're all the same. We like to get hung up on these diagnoses and labels, but really, in reality, just when you boil it right down to the way the brain operates and the way the brain functions, you're looking at challenges and delays in the social emotional brain and the way that impacts the left hemisphere, which is your cognitive rational part of your brain. So what I want you to understand is that stress manifests the behaviors that you see. And it doesn't matter which behaviors they are. You can put a whole list. And what I've loved about the stress model is because it's so simple, I can apply it to the most complex situations. And you also can do this. I want you to be able to do this. So remember, all behavior, this is lying, stealing, defiance. I want you, any of them. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I say all behavior. I want you to think of any behavior that you are facing with your child. Any behavior that you're facing with your child. I want you to list them down. I want you to list it. And then I want you to think about them as arising from stress. I just had a mom say, what if you have a kid who's hungry, but he doesn't want to come eat because he doesn't want to stop playing with his friends? Is that stress? Is that really stress? Or is that just not wanting to stop playing with his friends? Do you remember when you were a kid and my mom used to stand on the back porch and she'd say, Brian! And I could hear it from about 2 blocks away. And I would say, because I knew as soon as I heard that, because the street lights were coming on, as soon as I heard that, I would say, coming! And I would start running my butt home. That was my call. But have you ever been happy to leave your friends when you're playing and having a good time? Absolutely not. Because remember, the physiology of peer interaction is the same physiology as stress. So even though I was having a good time, my little freaking brain was stressed out. And usually, mom can attest to this, she'd have to yell my name 2 or 3 times. Because the first time I didn't want to hear it. And I wanted to act like she didn't even say it. because I'm in confused and distorted thinking and suppressed short-term memory. But by the second time, I knew I better get my butt home. So in reality, it doesn't matter what the behavior is. I want you to look and I want you to think tonight, because tomorrow when I show back up, we're going to do part 2 of this. And we may do a part 3, we may do a part 4, we may do part 5. We may do a stress model dissertation over the next year, whatever it takes. I want you to think about how stress is manifesting the behaviors that you are seeing. That's what I want to leave you with. How is stress manifesting the behaviors that you are seeing? And then when you show up here tomorrow, if you have questions, let me know. And let's talk about it. And let's dissect it. And let's analyze it together. But I want you to remember, I'm going to leave you with one last thing. Stress. We experience stress through 8 possible sensory pathways. 8 different sensory pathways. What you see, what you smell, what you hear, what you taste, what you touch, digestion, temperature, and movement. 8 different sensory pathways, all bombarding our sensory system all the time. We have billions of pieces of sensory input at any one time, and our brains have to channel it out. So that's why we don't feel it. That's why we don't always know at an unconscious level. We don't always know what's stressing us out. Because out of any of those 8 sensory pathways, you can get triggered and move into stress, and that stress will manifest that behavior. And that stress will turn into fear, which manifests that behavior. I'm going to leave you with that. Thanks for joining me tonight. I'm actually about to go see a scary movie. God bless you. Big Papa loves you. My hope and my prayer for everyone that comes across our information in our material is that every single night you lay your head down and the cells of your bodies release the stress, the generations of stress, generations of pain, generations of hurt, generations of fear that you carry because the sins of the forefathers are visited upon the 3rd and 4th generations. And that tonight you will release that pain, and tomorrow you will wake up renewed, refreshed, restored, re-energized, reinvigorated, and ready to take on a new day. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow.